Hi, I'm Ems, aka on Dark and Wings. In this video, I will be giving a brief overview of how I painted up these Pastel Delaque Expansion miniatures from Necromunda. Please do like, comment and subscribe, it all helps my small channel grow and gives me the motivation to keep making these videos. I think this is my favourite house in Necromunda because the characters are very mysterious and alien looking, and they obviously remind me a lot of the aliens from the movie Dark City. So here I have all the models out of the set primed and ready to go. I wasn't a huge fan of assembling these. I think the instructions were a little bit lacking. Anyway, I think they look cool and they're all ready to go now. I really like the scheme on the box art, and I don't usually always paint in the box art style, but since I did like this, I thought I would try and do my own interpretation of it. Not necessarily using the exact same paints, but in a similar style. I'm not going to bore you to death and paint every single model up on camera. I'm just going to pick out some key points, as most of them have very similar colours and armour panels on them. To start off with, I'm going to do the armour plates, so I'm using Dark Star Copper for this. The box art has more of a brass colour, but I like this one instead as it pops really well and covers super well. I like using cheap synthetic brushes like this when I'm just blocking in colours, when I'm using base colours, so I'm not too afraid of destroying the brush. This is definitely one of my favourite paints to use. It just stands out really nice and covers very well. I'm just skipping ahead here and I've got the brain alien guy. I don't even know what he's called, but he looks very cool. I'll have to read up on him. It's funny how much the Pastel Delaque look like Xenos, but they get away with it. So here are the first parts done of the copper. I think it pops really nicely, doesn't it? And now I'm using Victorian Pala from Dark Star. This is a wash. I like the Dark Star washes. They have a nice consistency to them and aren't too gloopy. And now to conclude the armour panels or plates, I am using polished copper from Dark Star. I will be dry brushing this over the top, just for quick, and it'll catch all the textures, and I'm going to do it on the raised areas, of course. I'm using an Artis Opus dry brush here. I have a recent video in which I talked about comparing them to other brands and makeup brushes, and I'll put the link in that in the description below. The polished copper adds some nice highlights and does stand out from the previous copper layer, creating some nice contrast. I know I talk about Dark Star a lot, but I do recommend getting them, and one of the things I do really like is the fact they have some really nice contrasting highlighting colours, because I think a lot of other brands don't really have enough difference in colours in between like light and dark metallics. Moving on from the armour panels, I wanted to address the leather, so only 4 of the models have this. So for the first layer of the leather coat, I am using Rhinox Hide from Citadel. This is one of my favourites to work with when starting off with browns. And I wanted to base the jacket off Snake Plissken's from Escape from New York. Yeah, so if you've been following me a while or friendly with me, you probably know I like making pop culture references or talking about deep cut media. Anyway, I'm just smushing that Rhinox hide over the jacket, so the cheap synthetic brushes are great for this. I'm using Deathclaw Brown here from Citadel, of course Deathclaws from Fallout. I am stippling this on, so quite controlled dry brushing, and I'm catching the raised areas. I want the leather to look worn, like I said, Snake Plissken's jacket. Deathclaw Brown is a nice colour. It has this orange tone to it, and it'll create a bigger contrast between that and the Rhinox hide. Stippling is an underappreciated technique, I think. Instead of using a dry brush, you can make your own stippling brush by getting an old tired brush and just cutting the top of it off so it's more flat. It's a great way to build up texture and create more of a 3D effect, whether it's weathering, or you can do it in a more refined way and build up layers on a cape. I was going to leave the leather there, but I was really getting into it, so I grabbed an even smaller dry brush and stippled on some last layers with a mix of ivory from Pro Acryl with the previous colour Deathclaw Brown. I had a lot of fun making this video, I do have to say. These miniatures I've had for a while, and they've been sitting on my pile of shame. That's one of my resolutions for this year, is to paint more of the things I already have instead of printing more or getting more. And I highly recommend you do the same as well. Instead of giving into FOMO, you might paint something up you really enjoy and learn some new things along the way. And don't be afraid of messing it up, you won't learn unless you try. I was really impressed by the leather. I think it came out great, and I think the model complements it as well, as there's a lot of natural grooves and creases. It's not the first time I've worn leather like this, but I would love to do a larger bust or model and make something very cool with it. After the long-winded waffle about leather, I moved on to the black areas. So there's like this cowl here, and a couple of the models have some black areas on them. So I'm just dry brushing some Thunderhawk Blue by Citadel here. Normally I would build the layers up more gradually, so maybe I would mix the Thunderhawk Blue in with some black and build it up, but this time I haven't. I've kind of learned to just minimize the way I paint things, especially if I'm just painting it up quick like these things. So I'm doing the skin on these guys, and they tend to have like this undead alien kind of look to them, so I'm grabbing Rakar Flesh from Citadel and just smushing it all over. I grabbed a smaller brush here, of course. It's a great colour to use as it has this greyish tone to it, so it looks more, like I said, undead and a bit more sickly alien looking. I have some Citadel Ultramarine Blue here, so it's contrast paint and I'm thinning it down to more of a wash consistency, and this is just going into all of the recesses. I will tidy this up afterwards with more Rakar Flesh, but I obviously won't show that on camera. I am still trying to do my own interpretation of the box art, so I don't think I'm doing too bad so far. It has this weird kind of toe look to them though, I think. I used the same colours on the brain of the alien guy. Some of these minis have these tubing on them, so I'm going with blue, and I'm grabbing a sky blue from Pro Acryl. I just love that Pro Acryl have these straightforward names instead of these stupid over-the-top fantasy ones. They keep it simple. This nice pop of blue on the tubing stands out really nice against the copper and the rest of the model. I'm keeping this simple and then just adding some highlights with AK Interactive's Pastel Blue. I only recently got some AK paints a couple months ago, and I do really like them, especially the pastel ones. They're great for adding highlights, especially this one and the ice yellow. They're vibrant and nice and opaque, but still flow very well. It might not be super obvious, but I am actually wet blending this colour in. So that previous colour of sky blue is still wet, and I'm just putting a bit of this in and mixing it together. I find highlighting tubing and cylinder things like this look better when you're wet blending, but that's my personal opinion. Moving on now, I'm almost finished. So the metal tubing parts, the weapons and the bases, I grabbed a silver from Darkstar Molten Metals, so this is the bright steel colour and it pops super nice. I think this sword looks so cool. Anyway, once the silver was put on, I put some non-oil wash off camera just to speed things up a bit. Of course, this wouldn't be a Necromunda batch of models or an Undarkened Wings batch of models without having some rust. So I'm grabbing some Vallejo Oxide wash here. It has this really nice reddish orangey rust tone to it, and I'm just washing some little bits into the crevices. And just for one last little pop of rust colour, I grabbed Trollslayer Orange from Citadel, and I'm stippling this on with a small brush to create some rust textures over the bases. And just for the very, very last part is some red paint here. I'm not even going to go into much detail, but there are some like little node eyes on the alien guy, so I just filled those in. So here are the models all finished up, and I'll just go through them quickly and showcase them. I think I've really captured my own interpretation of the box art. I love the leather, I think that's one of my favourite parts, and that copper with the dry brushing over the top looks awesome. It stands out really well. It's a really nice batch of colours, they really complement each other. I think this is the most fun I've had painting in a while, and I didn't go too over the top with it, but I always try and add some little more details, like with the worn leather, and also with the bases with a bit more rust on them. As I said earlier, I really do hope this encourages you to pick some models up from your backlog and paint them up. Don't be afraid of them, just get them painted. Thank you for watching. I do have a link now if you want to donate, or if you want to join my Patreon. It'll help support my channel. Otherwise, please do share this video. Thank you if you have joined already. As always, thank you for watching. Remember to enjoy your hobbies for yourself, respect that people enjoy them in their own ways, and at the end of the day, they're just war dollies. I'll see you in the next one.